It begins in silence, a silence that feels heavier than words. Picture a man, alone in his room, kneeling, his hands clasped, his lips moving in prayer, yet his heart sinking. Because no matter how much he speaks, it feels like God isn't listening. He's been praying for weeks, begging for answers, asking for direction, but the heavens feel closed. He whispers, "Why can't I reach you? Am I doing something wrong?" And that question, the very one he wrestles with in the dark, is the same question humanity has asked for thousands of years. Because here's the truth most people don't want to hear. Yes, you can make a mistake. Yes, you can pray in a way that's empty, hollow, disconnected. And Jesus himself warned about it. "Do not be like the hypocrites," he said, "for they love to stand and pray where everyone can see them. But truly, I tell you, they have their reward." Those words cut deep, because they weren't aimed only at religious leaders of his day. They were aimed at anyone who treats prayer like performance. And tonight, we're going to step into that moment. Imagine being there. The dusty hills of Galilee. Crowds gathering, restless, desperate, broken. They had heard of this teacher, this healer. And now he stood before them. Not with scripts, not with rituals, but with truth that pierced the heart. When you pray, do not keep on babbling like the pagans, for they think they will be heard because of their many words. Do not be like them, for your Father knows what you need before you ask him. The crowd went silent, because no one had spoken of God like this before. Direct, personal, intimate, no rituals, no repetitions, just relationship. And in that silence, Jesus revealed something that would change everything. The way you talk to God is not about the length of your words. It's not about the performance of your lips. It's about the posture of your heart. But here's where it gets more intense. Because he didn't just warn them about what not to do. He gave them the exact blueprint of how to pray. And that blueprint is what we're about to uncover. But first, think about this. How many times have you whispered a prayer, only to feel nothing? How many times have you begged for an answer, only to hear silence? How many times have you wondered, am I talking to God the wrong way? That fear, that doubt, is exactly why what Jesus said matters. A disciple once asked him, "Lord, teach us to pray." And in that moment, he didn't give them a ritual. He gave them a revelation. He began with a word that shook them to their core. Not Lord of hosts, not Almighty Judge, not even Creator of the universe, but this, our Father. Can you feel the shift? The distance vanished. The fear melted. For the first time, the crowd heard that the God who spoke galaxies into existence was also a father. This wasn't about grand temples. This wasn't about memorized lines. This was about a child speaking to their parent. And Jesus warned them, warned us, not to make the mistake of treating prayer like performance. Because God isn't impressed by speeches. He isn't moved by empty words. He's moved by honesty. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Every word he spoke reshaped how humanity would pray forever. It wasn't ritual. It wasn't repetition. It was relationship. But here's the part no one talks about. The part people forget. The part that will change how you talk to God starting tonight. Jesus wasn't just giving a prayer to recite. He was giving a model, a living, breathing framework, a way of speaking that aligns your heart with heaven. And if you miss it, if you treat his words as mere routine, you risk making the very mistake he warned against. So tonight, we're going to walk through it step by step. The warnings, the wisdom, the revelation. Because Jesus revealed not just how to talk to God, but how to listen. And if you've ever prayed and felt unheard, this is the moment you've been waiting for. The crowd leaned in closer. They thought they understood prayer. They thought they knew how to reach God. But Jesus was about to dismantle everything they thought they knew. For generations, prayer had been tangled in ritual. It had become a show, something recited in public squares, something shouted from temple steps. It wasn't about God anymore. It was about them, about being seen, about being praised. And that, Jesus said, was the mistake. When you pray, do not be like the hypocrites. They love to pray standing in synagogues and on street corners, to be seen by others. Truly I tell you, they have their reward. The word stung. The Pharisees stiffened. The people looked at each other, stunned. Because Jesus wasn't just talking about religious leaders. He was exposing a truth everyone was guilty of. Praying to be heard by people, not by God. And this is where the conflict sharpens. Because if prayer isn't for people to see, then what is it really for? When you pray, go into your room. Close the door. Pray to your Father, who is unseen. And your Father, who sees what is done in secret, will reward you. Do you feel the weight of that? The God of heaven sees in secret. It means that prayer isn't a performance. It isn't about appearances. It's intimacy. It's vulnerability. It's you, alone before your Father, stripped of all pretense. But here's the tragedy. Most people still miss it. They pray with their mouths, while their hearts remain distant. They recite words without ever meaning them. They fill the silence with repetition, but never surrender. And that's why so many feel unheard. Do not keep on babbling like the pagans. They think they will be heard for their many words. He was drawing a line between empty words and living words, between noise and relationship. And that's where the conflict begins for us. Because deep down, we wrestle with this question. Am I really talking to God? Or am I just talking to myself? The mistake is subtle. It's not just saying too much. It's saying the right words with the wrong heart. And how many of us have done that? How many of us have whispered prayers half asleep, distracted, rehearsed, hoping God will answer something we didn't even mean? That's the battle. Lord, are you even hearing me? Or am I just wasting words? We've all asked that. And it's why Jesus gave a warning stronger than any other. Because prayer without heart is just noise. And noise will never move heaven. Imagine the crowd that day. Ordinary farmers, fishermen, mothers clutching children. Every single one had prayed before. Every single one thought they knew what prayer was. But now, Jesus was telling them. Most of their prayers had been empty. The tension crackled in the air. He dares call our prayers meaningless? Then how do we pray? How will he hear us? The conflict wasn't just cultural. It was personal. Because if they had been doing it wrong all along, what hope was left? And maybe you feel the same. Maybe you've been talking into the silence, wondering why heaven feels so far away. But here's the key. Jesus wasn't condemning them to despair. He was preparing them for revelation. The tension had to rise. The discomfort had to cut deep. Because only then could the truth break through. Your Father knows what you need before you ask him. Think about that. Before your lips move. Before your words form. Before you even know how to ask. He already knows. And that changes everything. Because the purpose of prayer isn't to inform God. It's not to convince him. It's not to negotiate. It's to align. To bring your heart into rhythm with his. The mistake, the one that ruins prayer for so many, is thinking it's about controlling God. About getting what we want. About bending heaven to earth. But Jesus was leading them to a deeper truth. Prayer isn't about bending God's will to ours. It's about surrendering our will to his. And that revelation was about to ignite. The conflict had been exposed. The old ways torn down. The crowd restless. But the moment of breakthrough, the blueprint for true prayer, was coming next. And when he spoke it, the world would never pray the same way again. The air was heavy. The crowd restless. He had torn down their rituals, exposed their mistakes, and unsettled their certainty. But now, he would reveal the way. The right way, the living way, the way to talk to God without mistake. And when he opened his mouth, the words would echo through centuries. This, then, is how you should pray. Every heart leaned closer. Every breath caught. This was it. The answer to the question that had haunted humanity. How do I talk to God? And then he spoke. Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come. Your will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us today our daily bread. And forgive us our debts, as we also have forgiven our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. The prayer was short, simple, no theatrics, no babbling. But in its simplicity, it carried the weight of eternity. This wasn't just a prayer to repeat. It was a blueprint, a model, a revelation. When he said, Our Father, he shattered distance. God wasn't a stranger, not a cold ruler, not a distant deity. He was a father. When he said, Hallowed be your name, he lifted hearts higher. It wasn't about us. It was about his holiness, his glory. When he said, Your kingdom come, your will be done, he reset the foundation. Prayer isn't about forcing our will into heaven. It's about bending our will to his. Not my will, but yours. And in those words lay the secret of prayer. The mistake most make is praying to get. But true prayer is to surrender. When he said, Give us today our daily bread. He taught dependence, not greed, not endless demands. Just enough for today, trusting that tomorrow he will provide again. When he said, "Forgive us our debts," he revealed the doorway of mercy. Because you cannot talk to God correctly while holding onto unforgiveness. Forgiven people forgive. When he said, "Lead us not into temptation," he revealed the battle of the soul. Prayer isn't just asking. It's armor. It's protection. It's the cry of a heart desperate to be kept safe. And finally, deliver us from evil. The cry of humanity since the beginning. The crowd had expected formulas. They received freedom. They expected performance. They received intimacy. And in that moment, the world changed. It's so simple. Not a show. Just him. I can speak to him. Like this. Like a father. He had given them a way to reach heaven without pretense. A way to talk to God that was not mistake, but truth. And here's the climax of it all. Prayer is not about words. It's about surrender. It's not about saying enough. It's about meaning enough. It's not about being heard by others. It's about being known by God. Your Father knows before you ask, and he waits, not for your many words, but for your heart. The silence after was thunderous. He had stripped prayer down to its essence. He had exposed the mistake of performance. And he had revealed the truth of relationship. This was the turning point. This was the moment that shattered centuries of ritual. And even now, 2,000 years later, those words burn with the same fire. Because maybe you've been making the same mistake. Maybe your prayers have been noise. Maybe you've been talking, but not surrendering. And maybe tonight, it's time to pray as he taught. To talk to God the right way. The crowd was stunned. Not by fire. Not by spectacle. But by simplicity. The prayer was not long. It was not dramatic. It was not meant to impress. It was meant to connect. And for the first time, people realized. Talking to God was not about earning his ear. It was about opening their hearts. I've been trying too hard. Making it about me. He just made it about him. After all these years, I can finally speak to my Father. And that's when it sank in. Prayer was never about getting words right. It was about relationship. Think about it. A father doesn't need his child to speak perfect sentences to listen. A mother doesn't need poetry to hear her child's cry. God doesn't need performance. He wants honesty. How many prayers have been lost because people thought they weren't holy enough? How many hearts have stayed silent, believing they didn't know the right words? How many voices went unheard, when all along, the Father was waiting for the simplest call? When you pray, go into your room. Close the door. Speak to your Father, who is unseen. And your Father, who sees what is done in secret, will reward you. That line shattered the fear of performance. It wasn't about the stage. It wasn't about the crowd. It wasn't about applause. It was about the secret place. The unseen place. The place where heaven bends low to listen. And here's where it all comes together. If you've been wondering how to talk to God correctly, it's not with eloquence. It's not with repetition. It's not with ritual. It's with honesty. It's with surrender. It's with trust. Father, here I am. Weak, needy, but yours. That's the prayer he longs to hear. That's the prayer he cannot ignore. Because prayer was never about moving God closer. It was about realizing he is already near. Narration, final emotional swell. So don't make the mistake of babbling. Don't make the mistake of pretending. Don't make the mistake of praying to be seen. Instead, pray to know him, to walk with him, to rest in him. Because the secret has already been revealed. You don't need to reach for heaven. Heaven has already reached for you. This, then, is how you should pray. And now, it's your turn. Step into the quiet. Call him Father. And speak. Because he's been waiting. All along.